I don't have any experience with 3D printing, and the guys ask me, when are you gonna get one? I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not that going down that rabbit hole.
Well,
So
you do wood turning, right? Or
I
no?
started with wood turning,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
and then I kind of did like you, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. Let's try
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
So my
3D printing
current,
and wood turning go really well together.
that's what I'm hearing. But
Mhm.
Yeah, we're about to find out.
Yeah.
We're about to find out.
Tune in next week when
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I know,
I
Jake. I gotta send
recently
you
got
some files.
I recently got the laser, and so I'm really loving that
Yeah.
right now. But
Right.
with your 3D printing, what's your favorite part of that? Because I see it on all your little reels. You're like, let's take it off the board, and you crack it.
Yeah, that is my
It's
favorite
like when
part.
you're doing
I
a
know.
resin pour, and that's the satisfying
Yeah.
part is just watching it go,
hmm
right? So
Yeah, I think with 3D printing, it's kind of hard to pick one aspect of it. But what I sell mostly and what I like designing is more of like practical 3D prints, like things that like serve a purpose for you. Um, like one of the things that I make and sell is like this little like we can all tell what it is, right? Like from the shape. It's like the Mario warp pipe, but inside I made it where it will hold my Nintendo Switch games and my memory cards, and then it will like hold this. So it's not like super practical, but I like that kind of thing rather than like
That looks like. Hold
these
that
little
up again.
toys.
Hold that up again.
yeah,
That looks like Jamie. Yeah.
It is. It's modeled after him, so
Oh,
well, there you go. Captured it perfect.
yeah.
go to the website, search the Jamie. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things I try to do with my 3D printing business is go through the different kind of like crafting niches or niches or whatever, and see like where are these holes and like how can I insert myself into it to make money. So like a lot of like Tumblr people, right? They all want like straw toppers. So like I make these little Stanley straw toppers that you can put like on your Stanley cup.
cool.
So stuff like that.
Or cousin it.
Yeah, I saw
Is
it.
that-
I'm like, let's see that hand again there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yep.
So I make them out of resin, but they only fit on the regular, like Starbucks size
Mm.
straws. I haven't found resin ones for resin molds that fit the Stanley straws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
You got problems.
I do.
Oh.
I
Like
do have to
rough
say that's
life.
one of the nice things about the 3D printing is, originally like all of these other ones that I sell, I made them for Starbucks. But when the Stanley became popular, the straw is like roughly 10 millimeters wide. And so I just went back into my 3D file that I made for this, and I changed the hole from like 8 millimeters to 10 millimeters. And then, it's really easy to update it. Whereas like a resin mold, you have to be like, okay, let me buy these 5 resin molds. Which one is gonna
Yeah.
fit?
Yeah, Jen, with that
Mm.
fancy shaper trace, you could
Yeah.
get that done, and all you need is a 3D printer.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
you can partner with some of your other friends who 3D print, and they can send you one, and then you can make a silicone mold out of it, and then you have your resin mold.
There you go, Jake.
Yep. So there you go.
Bringing me-
There's your
bringing
first
me into your
collab. Your
drama.
first collab right there.
Ooh, volunteering me for
Bring me
stuff,
into your
man.
drama.
I'm a busy guy.
So you do a lot of 3D printing. Have you ever had a failure that just it was horrible and learned anything
yeah.
from it? Or
Break your heart.
tell me about it.
Yeah. So
I love to hear about it.
I've been really lucky to where I don't get many of them. Let me knock on wood real quick. But like, I don't know if you've seen pictures of people where they're like, oh, I woke up and the whole build plate was like spaghetti. So I've never had that happen to me, actually. All the failures that I have has somehow where the print has lifted off the bed and then melted itself around the hot end. So there's this
Nice.
one where like I went to work and I came back and I didn't know obviously that it failed, and it was like just this massive ball. So it was like super frustrating, but then like I was able to make a video on how to fix it. But it was literally just like a glob, just encased around the hot end. And so it's like one of those things you kind of just look at it and you're like, mourn for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, like now I gotta tear this apart and fix it.
So when you're on the lookout for buying a 3D printer, are there any particular features that you're actually on the lookout for before you actually purchase it?
Yes and no. Like, so when I bought my first 3D printer, the Ender 3 was pretty popular. I didn't actually get that one, but I got like a clone version of it. It was like a G-Tech. And like, at the time, you don't really know how bad they are until like after the fact, right? And so then what I ended up doing was, just doing a lot of research, like watching YouTubers who like are like the 3D printing influencers, but you have to be kind of careful with that too, because some people, they do get paid by the companies to say good things about them. So I always try to look at the specs and just kind of be like, okay, I want to print with these specific filaments. Can that 3D printer handle that? And then like, what kind of bed does it have? So I always look at the bed type, what filaments it can have, and then honestly, just looking at like Amazon reviews too. So like my personal favorite brand that I recommend to like new people is the Elegoo Neptune series of printers. Those have been really good and they're relatively cheap to start up. And then surprisingly, the Creality Ender 2 Pro, which is really small, that's a really good starter printer. And I did like a 101 series on my channel with that printer specifically.
So this kind of good segue into the question that I had, and some of it might have been answered, but what if I get asked a lot by a lot of people, what should I expect? What do I need if I want to get into 3D printing? What do you recommend, since you do quite a bit of it? What would you give somebody that is new, that's wanting to get into 3D printing? What kind of advice would you give them?
I guess like advice wise, like for buying it or just general advice?
Buying, what to look for, just a general, not you don't have to get too detailed, what to expect. What are you going to need, software wise, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think buying wise, you just gotta, what you want to do is buy the best printer that you can that's within your budget, right? There's no point of like trying to finance to buy like $1,000 3D printer if it's your first one, because you don't even know if you're gonna like it. And also there's kind of like two types of 3D printers, not talking about resin printing, but as where, there's ones where, part of the hobby is like tinkering with the machine, upgrading it and all that stuff, or you're buying one that's a little bit higher end where all you're going to do is kind of like plug and play. So there is also even those two kind of categories. But yeah, you want to buy the best one that's within your budget. And then it doesn't hurt to reach out to people on Instagram and stuff, because most people have no problem giving you feedback and help and stuff. Yeah.
So do you like messing around? Do you like messing around with it and building and tinkering around, or do you just want to get after it and have one that just works and makes you some sales?
I like both. I prefer obviously just plug and play now, but when you first start, I think it was really helpful to me to buy the ones where you had to tinker with it, constantly kind of fix it, just because then I knew what I was doing more, if that makes sense. To where now, because even the plug and play ones, you still have issues, but because I did all that work, like trying to fix this minor issue, it's kind of like nothing. You don't even think about it. Whereas if you are brand new to 3D printing and something happens, you're going to think like, oh, this is like
you don't know which way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people when they ask me or hit me up, and it's like, do you have patience? Because you better have some patience when you're doing this, because it does take some,
Yeah. And I think you have to tell them too, like, you're going to be frustrated and that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean it's not a fun hobby.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just getting into it, there's the whole design aspect of it. Then you need to take it into slicing software, and you need to play with settings.
No Chromebooks.
Right. Yeah. And you're going to have problems for sure.
Yeah.
But that's why I always tell them, make sure you have patience, because if you don't have patience, then maybe you need to look at a higher end printer to start off with.
Yeah.
It's going to do most of the stuff. Don't get you a manual level, because that can get frustrating. at times. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you for talking me out of it again, Joey.